Americans no longer have faith in our major institutions, and so is the collapse of our civilization inevitable? Michael Snyder reports, if the American people have lost faith in almost all our major institutions, how is our civilization going to survive? If any collective effort is going to work, people have to believe in that effort. That is true whether we're talking about a sports team, a business partnership, a romantic relationship, or a nation as a whole. When people stop believing, it's just a matter of time before failure arrives, and at this point, the American people simply do not believe in those that are currently running our society. In fact, a recent Gallup survey discovered that faith in our major institutions has dropped to depressingly low levels. The survey asked people if they have a great deal or quite a lot of confidence in a long list of prominent institutions, and these were the results. Small businesses, 65%. The military, 60%. The police, 43%. The medical system, 34%. The church or organized religion, 32%. The U.S. Supreme Court, 27%. Banks, 26%. The public schools, 26%. The presidency, 26%. Large technology companies, 26%. Organized labor, 25%. Newspapers, 18%. The criminal justice system, 17%. Television news, 14%. Big business, 14%. Congress, 8%. So I'm surprised that small business has the most, 65% trust. Now, for 9 of those major categories that Gallup has had been tracking since 1979, the average score has dropped from 48% to 26% over that time. And Gallup says that confidence in almost every institution is currently at or near all-time lows. Most of the institutions rated this year are within 3 points of their all-time low confidence score, including 4 that are at or tied with a record low. These are the police, public schools, large technology companies, and big business. Only 4 institutions have a confidence score significantly above their historical low: the military, small business, organized labor, and banks. However, the lows for these institutions were recorded more than a decade ago, while the recent trend for each has been downward. Of course, the truth is that most of our major institutions fully deserve these low scores. Our federal government, our schools, our medical system, our major corporations, and the mainstream media have all become beacons of corruption and incompetence in recent years. Everywhere you look, society is breaking down and things are getting worse. Let me give you one small example. In New York City, the rat problem has become so severe that they have just held their very first anti-rat day of action. As New York City gets tough on its rodent problem, the first anti-rat day of action was held Saturday in Harlem. City agencies, including the sanitation department, teamed up to show and tell people how to keep rats out of the community. The city's first rat czar was also on hand to provide times. If you live in a city that needs to appoint a rat czar, you should probably consider moving. According to one resident, there are rats the size of crocs running around all over the place. We've had rats the size of crocs just running up and down the street like a croc shoe. The average size 8 running up and down the street, Harlem resident Ruth McDaniel said. Harlem is part of one of the 4 mitigation zones in the city that will get additional funding to help combat rats. Yuck. Once upon a time, Americans' shiny new cities were the envy of the entire world. But now our major cities have degenerated into rotting, decaying hellholes. For instance, just consider what has happened to St. Louis. In 1950, St. Louis was the 8th largest city in the United States, with a population of 856,796. Today, that number has fallen to less than 300,000, a drop of some 65%. Major employers, Anheuser-Busch, McDonnell Douglas, TWA, Southwestern Bell, and Ralston Purina, have dramatically reduced their presence or left altogether. St. Louis is consistently ranked one of the most dangerous cities in the country. 1 in 5 people live in poverty, and the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department has the highest rate of police killings per capita Of the 100 largest police departments in the nation, according to a 2021 report, prisoners in the city's squalid jails, where 47 people died in custody between 2009 and 2019, complain of water being shut off from their cells for hours and guards routinely pepper spray inmates, including those on suicide watch. The city's crumbling infrastructure, hundreds of gutted and abandoned buildings, empty factories, vacant warehouses, and impoverished neighborhoods replicate the ruins of other post-industrial American cities, the classic signposts of a civilization in terminal decline. I wish that I could tell you that St. Louis was an exception, but it isn't. All over America, cities are descending into chaos and violence is out of control. One particularly disturbing incident in Oakland made a lot of headlines in recent days. I'm not going to go into that. It's bizarre. Conditions in Oakland just continue to get worse and worse. And at this point, things are so bad that some local business owners are comparing conditions in the city to the Vietnam War. Now, this is our country now. You might want to get used to it because things are not going to turn around anytime soon. In the early days of our country, Americans made the Protestant work ethic, quote unquote, famous all over the world. Our forefathers worked insanely hard and they passed down a truly great society to us, but now we don't want to put it in that same level of work, and instead we just keep getting lazier and lazier. If a new bill that was just introduced in Pennsylvania becomes law, any business that has at least 500 workers will be forced, quote, to reduce their work week from 40 to 32 hours a week, unquote. From 40 to 32 hours. When those rare 3-day weekends pop up on the work schedule, it's an office-wide celebration. Well, what if that was every week? A new bill to create a 4-day week, a work week, is about to be introduced in the Pennsylvania legislature. It would require businesses with more than 500 employees to reduce their work week from 40 to 32 hours a week. However, less work hours will not mean less pay. I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, let's say you're an employer. How are you supposed to pay them the same amount of wages when they work less and have less production? Doesn't that sound great? I have an idea. Let's just not work at all and see how that turns out. Sadly, we're even passing on our laziness to our kids. In Portland, teachers will soon be banned from giving zeros to kids that cheat or fail to do their assignments. Portland Public Schools is workshopping new equitable grading practices that bar teachers from assigning zeros to students who cheat or fail to turn in assignments. The district's initiative aims to address racial disparities and inequities in grading and instruction, a journey that the district began during the pandemic and a handout reviewed by the Washington Free Beacon says, grading for equity, the handout states, includes eliminating zeros as a grade, even when a student cheats or fails to turn in a test or an assignment. It also calls for no penalties for late work and no grades for both homework and non-academic factors, such as participating, attendance, effort, attitude, and behavior. Well, if I were their teacher, I will give them a 1. If I can't give them a 0, give them a 1. Are you kidding me? If this keeps up, how will we compete with the rest of the world? The truth is that we won't. Our society is crumbling right in front of our eyes, and unless we find a way to turn things around, we won't last much longer. Most of them would rather sit on their sofas stuffing Cheetos into their faces and that as they watch Netflix. This is by Michael Snyder. He says about the author, my name is Michael, and my brand new book entitled End Time is now available on Amazon. In addition to my new book, I've written 6 other books available on Amazon, including 7-Year Apocalypse, Lost Prophecies of the Future of America, The Beginning of the End, and Living a Life That Really Matters, Commissions Earned. When you purchase any of these books, you help to support the work that I'm doing. And one way that you can really help is by sending copies as gifts to family and friends. Time is short and I need help getting these warnings into the hands of as many people as possible. I've also started a brand new Substack newsletter, and I encourage you to subscribe so you won't miss any of the latest updates. I've published thousands of articles on the Economic Collapse blog, End of the American Dream and the Most Important News, and the articles that I publish on those sites are republished on dozens of other prominent websites all over the world. I always freely and happily allow others to republish my articles on their own websites, but I also ask that they include this about the author section with each article. The material contained in this article is for general information purposes only, and readers should consult licensed professionals before making any legal, business, financial, or health decisions. I encourage you to follow me on social media, Facebook and Twitter, and any way that you can share these articles with others is definitely a great help. These are such troubled times and people need hope. John 3:16 tells us about the hope that God has given us through Jesus Christ. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. If you have not already done so, I strongly urge you to invite Jesus Christ to be your Lord and Savior today. This is by Michael Snyder on the Economic Collapse blog. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.